Hello there, and welcome back from the first sessions. I can't believe the turnout we've had today. It has been absolutely incredible. So we all got to hear Jason Porterfield talk today about speed. Speed seems to be something that we like a lot here at SAP. I don't know if you guys noticed this year, but except for the elevators, don't use the elevators. But I don't know if you guys know this, we are sponsoring Mercedes Petronas in the Formula One races. So that's pretty interesting. We really do love speed, but we also love cars. I came from working with Signavio and LeanIX, doing the partnership there, and the best way that I could describe what Signavio does is when you have your car, it gets you from A to B, that's your ERP, just like SAP. Well, your check engine light, that's Signavio. Lets you know ahead of time when there's a little bit of problems that you should attend to, or opportunities to tune up and make it go faster. LeanIX, that is a little bit like our GPS system. It allows us to know and go with the flow of our application rationalization, getting us to the best path and the fastest path to avoid traffic to really get to our destinations. So without further ado, to talk a little bit more about the Signavio piece, I have our wonderful expert, Mr. Chet Harter, VP Extraordinaire, and I will pass over the torch.
Thank you, Megan.
No worries.
I don't need the microphone.
You don't.
I'm loud enough without it. As Megan said, my name's Chet Harter, and I'm with the SAP Signavio organization. As many of you know, probably all of you, Signavio was an acquisition we made about 3 years ago. And the Signavio organization is made up of, you could say, 3 classifications of people. People who came with Signavio, the company formerly known as Signavio. People who came from SAP, that's where I came from. I've been with SAP for 20 years. And then the people who have hired on since. And it's been kind of interesting to watch the difference in the people who came from Signavio versus the people who came from SAP and the way we handle different things. But it's been an interesting, probably a great case study in organizational behavior and bringing these two companies together. My background, okay, is that, yes, SAP, 20 years. However, I came out of the manufacturing world. I didn't come from I wasn't an IT person. I came out of an operations management background, materials management, production management, and had the opportunities to do continuous improvement types of projects. You know, and whenever I start these things, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about, quite honestly. It's like I get up here and whatever pops into my head is kind of what starts rolling out. Kind of if you met me out here in the hallway, what would I start saying? But how did that happen? It wasn't like somebody said, we need to put together a continuous improvement organization. The way it happened, in a nutshell, was I was working as the corporate materials manager for an automotive supply and manufacturer, and we had a particular problem. We had a problem that I was called in the office, and sometimes I'll say, I was given the opportunity to work on this project. Somebody laughs, you know what I'm talking about. That's not usually how the conversation goes. But they did see that we have a problem here. And actually, I'm the one who found the problem, because in our case, we were providing parts to Ford Motor Company. 4 of our plants shipped to Ford directly, and Ford had a supplier performance rating system that they sent to us once a month with our performance scores, 100-point scale. And the rule was you have to be 90 or above being in good standing. And one of the things that comes along with that is you're not eligible for any future business if you're not 90 or better. So I take this new position. I'm sitting in my desk. Somebody brings in these reports in and says, we get these every month. And we really don't know where to send them, but maybe you want to see them. I look at it, the first one's 90. Okay, dodged a bullet there. The other 3 are below 90. The lowest is 34. All right, it's like, where's the camera? Am I being punked here or something? Is this the way it's supposed to work? As it turned out, we had not been a good performing company for some time. So the idea here, the reason I bring this up is because then it was like, you have the opportunity to work on this. So we bring together the right people from the various plants. How do you guys do it? How do you guys do it? You all use the same systems. So it can't be a system issue. You're all using the same systems. What's different in your processes? They had different business processes, the way they were all doing work. And the real problem was just a lack of awareness. They didn't have the feedback loop. The guys who were getting the 34, they didn't realize they were doing so poorly. No one ever shared that with them. So really all it took was asking the question, bringing the right people together and say, how should we be doing this? And then we changed our business processes, we standardized, and this is how we're going to do it, and so on and so forth. So that's how I got into this type of thing. Then I came to SAP. Eventually, long story short, maybe it's too late for that, but long story short, we created the BPI organization, Business Process Intelligence. Then we did the acquisition of Signavio, and it made all the sense in the world that I joined that particular team. So I frequently see people picking up their phones and taking pictures. Paul did say the deck would be available afterwards. I also will flash a QR code at the end of my presentation. So if you want an immediate copy of it in your email, you'll get that, okay? So primary theme of today's presentation, and I don't even need to turn around to look up here. Reducing uncertainty. As I start, I've been doing a lot of these presentations the last couple of years, and we talk about a lot of things. We can document your processes. We can do continuous improvement, collaborative process design, all kinds of things we can talk about. And my colleagues talk about, it's all over the place in terms of what they talk about. But the one overdriving theme here that I think is really, really important today, and by the way, after this, I'm going to make 5 key points through my presentation, 5 key points. But this is the overriding thing here, or the overarching thing. Reducing uncertainty. Uncertainty causes fear of making the wrong decisions. SAP Signavio and LeanIX will provide unprecedented visibility. Suddenly it sounds marketing-ish, but it's real. I wrote it, so it's okay. Unprecedented visibility into the performance and vulnerabilities of your business processes and your enterprise architecture, okay? So the key point here is, yes, I'm talking about Signavio and I'm talking about LeanIX, but it's solving a problem that I think everybody has, and that's dealing with uncertainty. Examples, and I'll get into this further, but just so you know where I'm coming from. I'm not sure S/4HANA is any better for us than ECC. Okay, well, you're not sure of that. You're uncertain. Because you probably don't know how bad you are today. I know that sounds really brutal. I'm sorry for that if it's hitting a little close to home or something, calling your baby ugly. No, what I'm talking about here is even if you have a lot of efficiency or effectiveness issues within your company, it's very possible you don't know it. And when somebody says, should we fix anything? Or we're going to go to S4. Should we just do a lift and shift? Everything seems fine the way it is. Why wouldn't I do a lift and shift? We're perfectly happy with the way it is today. In fact, we don't even want to do it. All right? But if we had a way to be certain about where are the opportunities for improvement in our current systems, why would we possibly want to throw those over into our new system and live with them another 10 years, like we have been for the last 10 years? All right? Having that visibility of things like, where do we have problems? What can I do about it? How do we make this change? These are all things that people are uncertain about. So I think we're going to hold off on that. Or when we do it, we're going to do it as cheaply as we can. So anyway, I've talked too much about this slide. I'm going to run too long. Business process management, okay? I'm not a feature function guy. I can talk about some features and functions, but that's not why I'm here today. I put this particular slide up here because it does have a screenshot on here, a very simple screenshot that you might expect to see in a process management software. Value stream mapping, if you will. All right? The key point to this is we are talking about collaborative design of business processes. All right, that's one aspect of Signavio. But why is business process management important? That's why I put this slide here. Why is this important? Because surprisingly, not everybody seems to see it this way. Let me give you an example. For a period of time in my life, I worked in the automotive aftermarket, inventory management, automotive aftermarket. And within our industry, it was competitive. We had competitors. We wanted to win that business. We knew that within our industry, we needed to have 98% order fill with 2-day turnaround. And if we're not doing that, then we're not being competitive. We're not meeting the requirements of our customers, their expectations. We're not doing as well or better than our competition. So we needed to make sure that the processes that we had were capable of hitting 98% order fill in a 2-day turnaround. Okay, and at some point, we went to a 1-day turnaround. And one of the things we had to eliminate in that process was an overnight batch run that passed data on to something else. Because that overnight thing just took us right off the map. If our goal was to hit a 1-day turnaround, there's no way we could have an overnight process in there like that. It was just stupid. However, in 1995, we had to have this batch run overnight. But by the time we tried to make these changes, we had technology that didn't require that anymore. But I bring this up because I find a lot of companies implemented their ERP systems in 1995, established their business processes in 1995 based upon 1995 ERP systems. And now we have 2023, 2024 technology, and they continue doing the 1995 processes. Something to think about, all right? So my whole point here is that your other option, you do have other options. You don't have to say, this is how we are going to do work. This is how we are going to perform. This is how we're going to do the work at our company in order to meet our strategic objectives. You don't have to. You could just throw a bunch of tools out there and say, do it any way you want to. And we're going to hope it works out well. And if we're lucky, our performance is going to be good. So you can rely on hope and luck, or you can manage take the bull by the horns here, or whatever analogy or whatever you'd like to use, and say, no, this is how we are going to define work and how it's going to be done. Because if everybody follows this way and everything works the way we planned it, we should be okay. And if we're not, we need to take a look at that. What's wrong with this? So I'll get to my key point number 1 here, which has taken me too long to get to it. Managing business processes is essential, all right? Now, you could argue that. We could debate that all day long. You could say, we don't have to. We don't do it today, and we're fine, okay? Well, you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. You probably have some disgruntled customers, some disgruntled employees. There are problems that go along with that, but sometimes companies don't see it. We've always done it this way. So people don't see what's out there sometimes unless they have somebody else, an objective viewpoint, or some data that tells them, no, you think everything's fine because it's been exactly the same way for the last 5 years or 10 years or even 15 or 20 years, but it's actually not as good as it could be. Managing business processes is essential. Organizations need to specify how work is to be executed. And we're talking about the elements of business processes that need to be managed: the people, the applications, and the data, all right? Take it one step further. I want to say something about that, okay? If that sales order processing example I gave you, if I want that process to work well for my industry, I need to have people who know what is expected of them. They need to be trained people. They need to be skilled. They need to be capable of doing what we want them to do. And those people need to have the right tools, okay? If I want to build a house, I can hire the best carpenters in the world, and they say, here's a hammer and here's a saw, go to it. No, they need the right tools if I want quality output and a quality house built, okay? The same thing applies to business processes. And any process with good output requires good input, and that would be data in our case here. So we need to have high quality, accurate data when and where needed. So that business process management people, who can be any of you, or could be the people, the business users who are responsible for the processes, or people like a Six Sigma continuous improvement organization. It depends on who's doing this type of work, but it could be everybody's job. But people, applications, and data, very important concept here about what we need to make sure we're managing. Change management. This has come up a lot today, and by the way, I sat through all kinds of presentations today, and I thought it was interesting that the Lean IX guy talks about Cloud ALM and Signavio. I'm the Signavio guy, and I'm going to be talking about Lean IX a little bit as well. We had the Cloud ALM guy talking about Signavio and Lean IX. So I think we're all trying to figure out, how do we work together on these types of things as opposed to just overlapping? And when people like yourself say, how does that compare to this? And we go, I don't know. So we're trying to avoid some of that. But change management has come up a few times today. In fact, during the keynote today, it was quoted. Well, remember what he said? It was a 2-word sentence about change. Change sucks. That's what he said. Now, he never said you don't have to do it, but nonetheless, he said he didn't like it very much. So I'm capable of remembering a 2-word sentence. Change management. So what are we talking about? This is a result of an ASUG survey that was done 3 years ago, surveying 123 CIOs who had implemented S/4HANA or were in the process near the end of implementing S/4HANA, asking them a lot of questions, not just one. What were the benefits? What were your experiences? And what were the biggest challenges? And that's what I have here. What were the biggest challenges you ran into while implementing S/4HANA? Now, the point that I want to bring up here is the very first one, the misalignment of management. What was the competing business priorities? Okay, that's a big one, too, and we could talk about that for a while, but I'm not going to. I want to get into the change management, which came out as number 3. And by the way, this is a 3-year-old survey. Last year, the same survey was done, and it didn't come out the same. Change management moved from number 3 up to number 2. All right, it was still the same top 3, but 2 and 3 flipped. All right. Now the other thing about this, okay, so they identified change management as one of the major challenges that they were faced with during implementation of S/4HANA. Also in the survey was something regarding your initiatives, your initiatives for next year. So I expected, something regarding change management, since this is one of the main things you deal with. I expected change management, or to address change management somewhere. Really a low priority. It was really far down on the list. Which, as a Signavio guy, that's not good at all. So I started asking consultants, some of the customers I deal with on an ongoing basis, help me explain this. Or help you explain this to me so I can explain it to other people. My screens are going out up here. And one of the things they came back with was this. And Jason Porterfield showed this slide today as well. I borrowed it from our RISE team. One of those RISE guys. RISE guys, eh? He showed this as well. And the point to this slide, and it's supported with some of my contacts, it said, that black line or that darker line at the bottom represents the occasional release of new software with new capabilities. All right? I need to build this out. The green line represents, on average or whatever, what people actually implement. All right? And you see the technical upgrades, as in SAP has a whole lot of new business capabilities, but we're going to do a technical upgrade because we think that would be easier, it'd be less disruptive, it'd be less costly, it'd be a lot easier for all of us. And the business users aren't complaining. They're fine with what they've got. However, over the course of time, that red thing at the very far right, functionality adoption gap, it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. So basically, kind of an assessment that was made was companies have forgotten how to do change, or they've never known in the first place how to execute a change. They'll do the IT part of it. They'll do the IT part back in the IT organization, and the rest of the organization, don't worry, you'll come in Monday and everything will be fine. It'll be back, and you don't have to change anything. All right? So we have a lot of pent-up stuff out there. In fact, as an offshoot of that whole conversation, all those customizations that people have out there in their ECC environment, do those still need to be there? Did you ever look to see if maybe there's some enhancements that have been made along the way that you might be able to take out those customizations and make your life a little simpler? But here's another point to this. Let's say that functionality adoption gap is 250 potential enhancements, 250 things that might be good for you. So here's all you have to do. Next week, start a project to do all 250 of those. There, okay? There's a gold nugget for you. Just start a whole big project to change everything, right? No, the point is you need a better way to determine, of those 250 opportunities for improvement, what are the 3, 5, 10, or whatever that you actually want to go out and attack? And if I'm preparing for an S/4HANA implementation, I also don't want to do all 250, but it is the perfect time to say, what are the 5, 10, or 15 really big ones that we want to take this opportunity? We're configuring a new ERP system. We've had problems for the last 10 years that we've been living with. Why would we carry those over into our new system when we have this opportunity? So once again, we need a way to identify what are those enhancements and determine, of all these enhancements, which are the ones that we want to attack right now, and leave the rest for after our go live for our continuous improvement program. Okay? This is what we're talking about in the world of Signavio, is giving people the visibility of what are those enhancements, where are places where we're not doing things as well as we could, and what are some options for how we can do that better. So, key point number 2, managing change. Business process management, managing business process is important, so is managing change. Companies have identified change management as one of their biggest, most prevalent challenges, yet very few know what to do about it. And that was their assessment as to why it was so low on the priority list. With a lot of the other things, it was like, well, we can get an RPA tool to automate that process, or we can replace our CRM package with a new CRM package. Organizational change management, let's just put it a little lower on the list here. I'm not sure what we can do with that one. Because it isn't just software. It's cultural type of thing. And there's a people element to it. There's a lot. It's a very complex thing. And companies don't know how to do it. Signavio and LeanIX. Another slide, as I've watched other presentations today, and one by one, I'm checking off my slides. Like, all right, so he's showing that one, he's showing that one. And the interesting thing for me is the number of slides that are identical, except everybody has taken them and tweaked them a little bit to meet their own purposes. I find it interesting. It doesn't mean you will. But what we're looking at here is the continuous infinity loop, of course, because we are talking about continuous improvement, continuous stuff going on here to analyze processes, analyze the performance of those processes, and ongoing improvement of those processes. That is the world of Signavio and Lean IX. Somebody brought up today the fast time to insight on the far right, on the left, fast time to adapt. That fast time to insight, I would ask this question, and it's a rhetorical question because we don't have time to get into this right now. I'd love to go around the room and say, hey, how do you do it? Fast time to insight. This is, once again, is identifying where are the problems? Where are those opportunities to fix something? You probably have, how many of you are in IT? It's an SAP crowd. How many of you have like a project list, a backlog list at work of things you're going to work on someday? Yeah, probably about everybody. And you think some of those things on that list, where did it come from? Is it just somebody complaining? Or does somebody actually have some numbers or something like that? This is costing us, every time we process a sales order, it's $1.50 we lose. Typically it's just somebody with a gut feel, somebody thinks something would be cool. When I was in industry, I was the guy who met with the IT organization once a month to talk about the backlog list. Prioritizing, where are we on things, stuff like that. And I remember one meeting where there was something on the list, pretty far down the list, and I said, "What is, based upon the description, what does this one mean?" They were like, we don't know. I said, who wrote it up? They told me who wrote it, and I said, isn't he? They went, yeah, he died a couple years ago. And nobody even knows what it is, but it's still on the backlog list of things for them to work on, and they just keep pushing it further down the list instead of just taking it off and saying, we don't know what it is, we don't know what it's worth, or put it in front of somebody to say, is this really something we need to be doing? But it was very, very subjective. And for every squeaky wheel that is saying, I've got a problem and I'd like it to be fixed here, for every one of those squeaky wheels, there's a well-oiled wheel. That well-oiled wheel in another part of the organization who never complains about anything because they put the current systems in 20 years ago. They're retiring in 3 years. The last thing they want to do is shake things up. They're perfectly fine with the way things are right now. And even though they might have more potential improvement areas than anybody else, I'd rather not bring it up. I find the way it is. In the world of SAP, my experience has been that the financial people are pretty noisy with their complaints and desires and things like that. It's typically the production people who are very, no, we're fine the way we are. And as a result of that, you have a whole lot of people over the years who have replaced their legacy systems with SAP financials, but we'll just stick with our manufacturing system that we built ourselves here, and it's a hell of a thing to maintain, and we certainly don't have any ability to do shop floor analysis or anything, but it's fine the way it is. I know what I'm getting every time I come to work. I know what's going to happen today. Anyway, what else? This also represents, I talked earlier about processes being made up of the components, the people, the applications, and the data. And once again, just to reemphasize this, the ongoing continuous effort of discovering where are my issues, being able to analyze them to determine just what is the issue, how big is this issue, and then go into a collaborative design phase, then implement, operate, continue to measure the performance of those particular processes, okay? Interesting. It goes off sometimes, and I was like, uh-oh. Side by side here, Signavio, Lean IX. My own analogy. Megan gave her analogy of the light on the car that says something's broken or whatever. Here's my analogy of this. I come from an inventory control background. For me to do inventory control, to manage my inventory of car parts or anything else, some things I need to know. I need to know how much I have. What do I have right now? I also need to know what should I have so I can start making some decisions in terms of what do I need to build? What do I need to buy? What do I need to get rid of? Things like that. I need to know the future. What are we forecasting? Is there a new model coming out? We need to be prepared for that. I need to know what's going on in the future. Look at these applications as a way to control the inventory. In the case of Signavio on the left, I have to keep On the left, we're talking about maintaining or controlling or managing your inventory of your company's business processes. What do we do? What's working well? What don't we have? Where do we have the problems? What are we going to do about it? Not only keep an inventory of how we do it today, but how do we plan to do things in the future and collaboratively decide what we're going to do about these things where we do have problems. On the case of Lean IX on the right, we're talking about an inventory of your applications and your capabilities. I need to know what do we have, what are our capabilities in our applications today? What are we going to need in the future? Based upon what the user community, the business community wants to do in the future, are we prepared for that? Can we support that? Or do we need to buy something else? Or when we look at our capabilities and they say they want to do this, we say, well, we have this. What do you think? Is that good enough? Can you sell that to them? It needs to go back and forth. So we're talking about basically inventory control of your business processes and the capabilities of your business processes, as well as your applications and those capabilities. A couple other key points about this. You see the handshake here in the middle, because they have talked to each other for many years. For 10 years, they've been talking to one another, so that these two groups can communicate better than they are today. We had an enterprise architecture event for ASUG in this very building 8 months ago, and you might not believe this, but it was a lot of enterprise architects in attendance. And I asked some of those the question, is that a problem? Because it was for me. It was for me back in the day, a disconnect between IT and the user group. And I asked that question, I said, is that really a problem? And they're like, oh yeah, that's a problem. Not that we don't like those people, but it was a whole lot of, well, they're difficult. They're difficult to work with. They give us something, they complain about a problem. They say what they would like us to do. We start doing it, then they're not available for meetings. We'd like to touch base with them and go over some things they don't have time for. It's just an ongoing kind of a hassle. And sometimes we find ourselves working on things that they're not supporting, and they're asking us to do things that we're not supporting. So yeah, we could be together. What we're talking about here in the world of Signavio and Lean IX is basically you could look at it as a communication or collaboration platform for the two organizations to work together to create a common language between those two organizations to help ensure that both teams are working to the same goals. The last point I'll make about this is both of these solution sets were developed in ERP-agnostic environments. They do not depend on SAP. So they work with SAP data or with SAP systems. They work with non-SAP systems or combinations of all the above. All right, this isn't an extension to S4HANA or anything. This is something that's, whether you're doing an implementation of S4HANA or you want to do a continuous improvement program with ECC or continuous improvement with S4HANA, it's appropriate. So, key point number 3. How am I doing? Signavio and Lean IX provide data-driven visibility, not gut feel, not opinions, not qualified complaints or anything. Data-driven visibility. You don't have to wait for somebody to come to you and tell you what the problem is, because you should be able to see it yourself. You could go to them and say, have you considered making some changes here, making some improvements? Be more proactive. And collaborative process design and architecture planning and serve to bridge the gap between IT and the business community. Okay? Key point number 3. Visibility for reducing uncertainty, the thing that I said this whole thing is about. You've seen this slide before today, and there are 2 slides here that really what this says is all companies are faced with challenges. All companies need to be able to change. I haven't heard anybody yet today or any other time say, I don't think change is necessary. I don't think we need to change. There are companies who did say that, and they're not here today. But there are hurdles to overcome. Uncertainty is one of those things, shortages of resources to work on improvement projects, as well as inconsistency. And what that inconsistency in this case represents is that inconsistency between the IT organization and the user community. All right? Okay, so we know that there are problems. A couple of people have talked about the pace of change and things like that today. Yeah, all very valid. But let's bring it home. Let's make it a little bit more relevant to SAP. Companies have been flying blind with little or no visibility for years. They don't know it, though, okay? And for so long, they didn't even realize they were vision impaired, because the people who work on such things, it's always been the same. For the last 10, 20 years, they've been working on these things, and they haven't had this visibility, so it never occurs to them that maybe there's a better way. Some examples here. I had fun putting this together, okay? The blue here represents what our salespeople hear from customers. The red represents what might be going on inside their head somewhere deep down. They don't even realize they're thinking it. We're going to, can you read that okay? We're going to stay on ECC as long as we can. We really don't see the value in S4HANA because we have no visibility of how good or bad things are today. All right? I'm not sure why we would make this move. We like what you've shown us. You're in a situation where you're looking at demos. The SAP's in there showing you demos of stuff and how cool it is and all this type of thing. But we need a cost-benefit analysis to show our management because we have no idea what these improvements would be worth to us. Now think about that. Asking, yeah, you're talking about bringing in a new system. Yeah, it's going to cost us $1 million or something like that. But I have no idea how to evaluate whether that's worth it or not. That's crazy when you think about it. We're going to do a technical upgrade without changing any business processes because we don't know which of our processes should be improved or how to improve them. And lastly, we are too lean to bite off such a big implementation project. And I have no idea how we could effectively and efficiently, I said it backwards, manage this change across 800 users. These are all uncertainty types of things based upon just people don't have the tools, they don't have the people, they don't have the data or information they need to make these types of decisions. So people are uncomfortable. So they hold off doing things. And even though there might be something out there that's just a brilliant move for the whole company, I'm just not sure enough. Somebody in one of the sessions I was in yesterday made the comment that we have an atmosphere at our company that if somebody proposes a change and they have to do a business case, and they do a business case and it doesn't come true, if it fails, they're out, they're gone. It's like, and basically so much of that, it's unfortunate that that's the atmosphere to begin with, first of all. But secondly, for the fact that without this certainty, without having any data, there is just a kind of a roll of the dice. If we're lucky, it'll work out well. We really don't know what we're doing here. We've never done anything like this before. So, I have a few screenshots here. The whole theme here of this whole point I'm making here is lack of data and providing visibility to people. What you're looking at here on the screen right now is some of the capabilities that I felt like you probably want to see something that makes you feel like there's real software here, right? What we're looking at here is an analysis within Signavio for analyzing S4HANA or ECC. And what does it do? It's going to look at how you're actually running those systems. It's going to do lots of measurements. It's going to compare those measurements to our benchmarking data and provide recommendations of what to do about it. Those recommendations would be things like, here's an RPA bot that you should take a look at because that might automate that particular process. Here is an automated workflow that's pre-built and ready for you to use if you want to use it. Here's a Fiori app. Here are 3 Fiori applications you ought to take a look at. It's free to you. It works. It connects directly to your ERP system. It's ready for you to use. Take a look at it and see if it meets your needs. Or it might come back with just some standard S4HANA functionality that you didn't know about. And if you're on S4HANA, you know how that can be, that there's stuff there that you just didn't know it was there. Or if you're in the ECC world and you see that there's S4HANA functionality, you can say, let's not deal with this right now. Let's wait for our implementation, and we'll do that then. So it's giving you insight into those types of capabilities. People chuckle when they hear me screw up. One thing about that, I don't have anything in this deck, at least not what I'm talking about today. It's in the appendix for the deck, the copy you'll get. But it's our use of artificial intelligence in the world of Signavio. And one of those is the fact that as SAP develops more and more capabilities, and I'm not talking about Signavio here, outside of Signavio, whether it's an accounts payable or sales order processing or purchase requisitions or whatever, as we develop AI capabilities, that is how we get that word out to our customers, is through this application here that says, here are some improvements that you're not using now that maybe you should consider. It's a cloud application, so if we create it and put it out there today, tomorrow you can find out about it. All right, that's for measuring ERP, S4HANA, and ECC. This one is true process mining. This is part of the acquisition. This goes end-to-end processes, regardless if it's SAP or non-SAP. Once again, to look at what is process mining? Not everybody knows. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. What is process mining? The way I look at it is, regardless of what you want to happen, regardless of what you think is happening, this is what's really happening, because process mining is going to look at your transaction logs and say, this is how your people are actually using the enterprise systems you have. All right? As a process manager, I would want to know that. If I just spend a lot of time, let's say, for example, during an S4HANA implementation, saying this is the way we are going to do work in our company in order to be successful, then I better have a way to monitor or recognize when somebody or a group of people, a group of somebodies, are not following the standard procedure. Defining that process is only half of it. I also need to be able to measure it, and that's what we have with process mining and task mining today that we couldn't do a few years ago. Once again, as a process manager, this would have been gold. I would have loved to have this back in the day. And then also from an enterprise architecture standpoint, the thing about Lean IX that we're talking about here is visualizations. So I can see things such as, what is my inventory of applications and capabilities today? To give me the tools where I can do risk mitigation, if you will. I can tell, is there something I use a lot of that my subscriptions or my licenses are running out here, or I don't have enough licenses to cover what I need here? The company is saying, we're going to roll this out from the 50 users we have right now out to 500. Am I prepared for that? All right? It's giving you the ability to head off and be more proactive with things like that to avoid problems, as well as if the business community, and let's talk about business-led IT here, if the business community says, this is where we're going, this is the direction we're going, are we prepared for that so we can do collaborative planning with them to make sure that we are set to support them as they go forward? So visualization, reducing that uncertainty is the big theme here. Key point number 4, uncertainty caused by unreliable data or no data is a major cause of poor, slow, or no decision making. That makes sense? To make good business process and architecture decisions, uncertainty needs to be reduced with data and information. The last sentence there, the need for process transparency is a latent need. Years ago at SAP, we were all taught solution selling. And one of the concepts of solution selling, after a 4-day class, solution selling was the only thing I remembered from that whole thing. The idea was that companies need stuff, but they don't know they need it. Once again, we've always done it this way. I've never even thought beyond this. Is there a better way? It never even occurred to me that there could be a better way. That is a latent need to say, this is something we have that you never even thought about. And once they understand what it is, like, oh my God, like, where's this been? All right? That's what we're talking about here, is this lack of visibility. People who lack this visibility don't realize they're lacking this visibility until they realize that there's a much better way of doing it. Business transformation and continuous improvement. Another thing you've seen a couple of times today, although I've seen it moved around a few times. Here's the key point of this. This is bigger than a Signavio thing. It's bigger than a Lean IX thing. We're talking about multiple things that need to happen for business transformation, moving from from a ERP to another ERP, or for ongoing continuous improvement. Process design, process and task mining. The change management thing is there as well as the training aspect. I want to put in a plug here. I'm running out of time, but I think there's something really important that this particular group might benefit from a mindset standpoint. I spent years on the application side of SAP, doing demonstrations and things like that. Then I moved over to our technical team, and this is before BPI and Signavio, all right? And one of the things that was a fast realization for me, were the capabilities that we had in BTP, within BTP, for enabling a system that's much more interactive with the business user community. An example, ECC world. I come in the morning, 7:30 in the morning, I come in, I'm in that inventory control guy. I turn on my PC or whatever, it looks a couple of emails, I go to the coffee room. Then I come back to my desk and I say, okay, we were running out of a particular thing yesterday. I'll check to see, okay, yeah, that came in yesterday, good, all right. Also was having a problem with this, I'll check that out. Seems to be okay, I think we're all right for now. I could spend 2 hours looking for something to work on, all right? As opposed to, why not have the system recognize those things automatically for me and alert me to those situations? We have those capabilities, whether it be a combination of situation handling in S4HANA or event mesh in BTP, to say, when these things happen, notify these people. Because the sooner I know about a problem, the sooner I can do something about it and keep it from becoming a bigger problem. But wait, there's more. If you order now, you'll also receive, if you get this alert saying, here is a particular problem, also pull together the right data for me. Don't make me spend the next 15 minutes diagnosing this and digging for data. Bring me the SAP and the non-SAP data that I'm going to need to diagnose this and determine what needs to be done here. And yet, what else? If there is a standard process for what to do when this happens, show that to me right now. What is that process? Because maybe I've only been on the job for a month. I've never dealt with this before. The person I replaced just left and retired. I don't want to call them at home. What should I do here? And if I'm using Enable Now, if I'm using SAP Enable Now as a training program, there's also a capability there, guide me through the process. Don't show me an example on some other system how I make water pumps. No, show me on my live system how to go through this process right now. I can create a very proactive, interactive system as opposed to a passive system of record that we've been having in the SAP world for many years. 5 minutes, right? Just the fact you're walking down here. For those of you in the SAP world, and I think that's all of you, people have always asked this, what are the products that, whether they be SAP products or SAP partner products, that provide these types of things? There's another point to this slide, and this comes up to our conversation before the presentation. There's nothing that says I can't use business process or using Signavio up here for business process design and use something else for process mining. All right, it doesn't have to be one, or it doesn't have to be everything. It can be fill in the gaps, because we know that there are a lot of people out there, a lot of other companies in this market space, and a lot of people have made investments, and they don't want to throw those out. You don't need an all SAP environment to do this. All right, so I just want to make that very clear. Somebody else asked me, why don't you put competitor products on this? I'm like, well, yeah, come on. So. This slide, I pulled this slide at the last minute because a lot of people, how many in here are preparing for an S4HANA implementation? Okay, so good enough. If there were 3 of you, it'd be good enough, but there was more than that. Before, during, after. We're talking about Signavio here. Before, during, after. Because I sometimes fear that people think that Signavio is a tool set for using during the implementation. And some people say, well, it's a 9-month implementation. Why would we buy software for a 9-month implementation? Okay, here's the point. Before, what we're talking about, I think you can read that. Current assessment and alignment. Where are the problems? What are we going to work on? How do we get everybody to buy into the same set of goals? All right, so we can avoid some of that misalignment issues that we saw earlier on the ASUG slides. But the one in the upper right, extremely important. Future state process design. The ability to collaboratively bring the right people together, not the 1, 2, or 3 people together, but the 10, the 20, the 30 people together virtually to say, what can we do about it? What is this new system going to look like in the future? And we're not talking about here during configuration of your S4HANA system. We're talking about 3, 4, 6 months beforehand to say, here are the areas that we're going to focus on. 90% of what we do is going to be identical to what we did in the ECC world, but here are the things we see a huge opportunity to make some changes here, whether it's to improve an existing process or come up with an entirely new business model in an area. This is the time to do that. You're making me really nervous over here. You can start advancing my slides for me?
Well,
it's been done. During the implementation, what we did there in that phase 0 up at the top, the before phase, now that guides our configuration and the performance or the execution of all those RICE FW types of activities that personalize the system for your particular company's requirements. And lastly, you just spent 18 months, let's say, determining this is what that new system is going to look like, and you've gone live on it, you've trained people or done whatever, and now we can monitor the execution. Are people actually, we determined this is the way we're going to perform, are people actually doing it that way? And as I mentioned before, we had 250 opportunities for improvement. We only bit off 10 during the implementation. We still have 240 that are part of our continuous improvement program. I'll move it along here. You can read this in the privacy of your own home later on. Key point number 5, you have the opportunity, this is a big one. You have the opportunity to build a corporate culture of a continuous improvement. Corporate culture, continuous improvement. Not 2 or 3 people, not the continuous improvement organization, but something that's prevalent through the entire organization. And make organizational change management a core competency. Get good at it. And what does that mean? Just as in my sales order process, I needed the people with the right tools and the accurate data, organizational change management also requires having people with the right skills. Those people need to have the right tools. That's what we've been talking about for the last 45 minutes. And quality data, that's also what we've been talking about. So the same things that apply to how you can do sales order management good or well are the same things that apply to organizational change management, and companies need to make those investments. Wrap up. There's a growing need for intelligent business process management and competent organizational change management. I think this is such an understatement. It's not a growing need. It's a huge need already, all right? And you people are in just a fantastic, this is the inspirational part of the program here. You guys are just in a fantastic spot to become rich and famous. Save the date. Here's an event that's coming up. This will be our 3rd annual event. I almost said Signavio event, but it's Signavio and Lean IX. So if you are business process management types of people, this is an event that's coming up. Just be aware of it at this point. This will be in the deck that you get. And this is my last slide. This is my QR code.
It's okay. Go ahead.
It's covered up, so you can't get it yet, right? It's covered up, and I'll tell you why it's covered up. Because the SAP field, what this does, when you scan this, it's going to open up an email, and it's going to say to Chet Harter at SAP.com, which is me. Okay, that's what it says on the to line. From is going to be you, because it's on your phone. And it's probably going to say something like at iCloud or Hotmail or Yahoo or something like that, and the SAP filters or phishing filters or whatever will take it out, and I'll never see it. Otherwise, if you put in your work email address, it'll go directly to my email box and should result in an immediate email back to you with a PDF version of this presentation and some other links for whatever. It never fails. I describe this so well. And when I go check my email, I'll have a bunch of Yahoos in there who, it's a joke. So there it is. So anybody who would, like I said, would like a...
It's a round one. It's not a square one.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that strange?
Good.
Yeah. I guess they need more real estate to... Anyway, I'll leave it up there because people are still scanning it. So,
good.
I'm here the rest of the day. I'm not here tomorrow.
You'll be at the reception?
I'm at the reception. I'm here all day. If you have any questions or want to talk. We also have the Lean IX and Signavio booths outside with experts at it who can answer a lot of those functional questions that people have been asking all day long. So please stop out there and give them a hard time.
Great. Thank you very much, Chet.
Thank you, Paul.